But one of the things we learned is that the most important influencers can be identified with the right analytic approach. So if you are Billy Beane, you say, who gets on base most often? If you're us, you say, who drives conversations most effectively? So total impact is what matters. If it's baseball, who scores the most runs? If it's us, whose impact has the widest reach? And then here's the kicker. Today's stats could be totally different tomorrow, right? Because ball players deteriorate. They don't always just go up. So today's influencer is not necessarily tomorrow's influencer. So you have to constantly be looking at what's happening in the marketplace. So this is, again, the essence of some algorithms that we built. They kind of get into this stuff. The other thing that we're seeing is that we're entering a time where supply chains are cooling in. So supply chains were really cool in the 90s, and we got into quality, and we said everything the Japanese are doing, we have to mimic it because we're learning great things from them, and I think we did to some degree. But think about it from a marketing standpoint, is there's 3 supply chains that are really important. One is a creative supply chain. So if you know the exact words and insights and influencers for your brand, does everyone who works in your brand have this? And do they have it at the earliest possible stage? Then you think of the customer experience supply chain. From the first time you make a first impression to the lifetime of that relationship, how do you know that you're actually consistent in what you're doing with that customer? And everyone in this room who works in a company knows that we've been struggling with that forever. So it's a hard thing to do, but it's a noble quest. And then the third is, we're getting into ideas. So how are you taking ideas and solutions from your customers and harnessing them and bringing them in so you can actually shape new products and services for the company? So those are the 3 chains, and if you get that right, that's revolutionary from a marketing standpoint. This just gets into, I won't get into this slide in any detail, but if you look at all the different points that you had where we're reaching a customer, you realize how many different groups are involved here, whether it's an email list, or it's a warranty that's sent out, or it's a support that's given, or it's a second purchase, or whatever it may be. And oftentimes, these folks are not talking to each other. They don't even know who they are in the company, because they're in different buildings and all of that. But we have to align around the customer as we grow as companies. Now, I mentioned about content cycles. This is an example, real-life example that the brand is actually hidden. But when you think of most content that goes out, typically what happens is that it actually creates a skyscraper. It goes up, goes right down. Usually that's not that relevant. So what we want to do is say, how do we create the most conversation, have the most total impact over time? So you're building mountain ranges. And the way you build mountain ranges is knowing who your influencers are, so you can actually feed them content so they can keep the conversation going over a period of time. So it's not related to necessarily writing a press release or an event. It's related to having great content that people actually want. And then we get into a really interesting observation from going through this, is the most important language in the world is short form language. So it's not Chinese, it's not English, it's short form language. And so we have a tendency to dismiss this because we say, well, our kids are texting, but we're not doing that much texting. But the reality is, if you look at how many cell phones exist on the earth, and you look at how Twitter is taking off, you realize that the game is over. Twitter has shown us that we're in a totally different world now. So we need to be good at understanding what happens. The slides are not? Okay, that's all right. It's all done.
Yes, put more quarters in
So, but that's what you start to realize is, are we actually even talking in the language that our customers want to hear from us? So that a lot of it, what we do is corporate speak and things like that. Would have like a total crash of the system here, or what? Oh, you don't have the, you don't have the battery on. Okay, we get a power. This is improvising, huh? Okay. There you go. Take a minute. So anyway, I don't remember what the next slide was. So. Yeah. Try. Yeah, it's one of those things you learn, right? Always plug stuff in. It's like rule number 7 when you speak. Okay.
Tell us a
Book so far, yeah, I mean, it's, we are, I don't actually know much about the book industry, just wrote one, right? But we've already got a couple thousand copies that are going out, and it doesn't actually, it's not technically available till March 15th. So it looks like it's getting a very nice reception. And I have gotten suggestions from people who have said that we should price it differently on Amazon and things like that. And I've sent them back notes and told them that they should talk to Jeff Bezos personally, let him know, because we have no control at all over the pricing. So, but no, it's kind of fun to do. You know, I mean, the big learning was hearing the consistency of people. You know, if I think of one of the things that I heard from Michael Dell and Mark Benioff, which you read in the book, is on collaboration, and you'll probably talk to this, but just this unique ability that we can actually really finally get people who have the same knowledge together, and geography really is irrelevant. And I think we've talked like that for 10 or 15 years, but it didn't get it. Okay, so that was, thank you, Cliff, for, yeah, that, all right. Let's see how long this lasts. So the other thing is multi-channel consumers. So this is the other thing that's happening. Is so again, we tend to discount and say, oh, our kids are doing this, but not everyone else. We're doing this. So if we look at what's going on right now, when we consume content, you know, here it is, 92% of Americans get daily news from multiple platforms. 60% of us get daily news from a combination of online and offline success or sources. But then you look at actual kids under 18, and they simultaneously consume for 3 channels at once. That's their norm. So they could do 4 or 5. I have what I call Xbox kids. So when they're upstairs with their friends, they are actually on Xbox, listening to music, playing a game, doing texting, on Facebook, checking their phone. You know, and it's like, wow. And they don't see it as being abnormal. So the big question for us then becomes, what are the channels? What's the mix of channels that actually reach our customer most effectively? So what is the punchline is, the old way of thinking in a linear way, we will do this and send it to this person and they will do this, that's long gone. We're now reaching people in multiple ways at the same time. Okay? The 1-9-90 rule, this gets played out over and over again. A lot of the folks in the room know this rule. It's not really a rule, but it actually plays out fairly consistently. 1% of people create content, 9% of people share content, 90% of people lurk and learn. Everyone can relate to lurking and learning because it is the majority of us. But the reality is, finding out who those creators are is key. That's actually becoming easier. Finding out who's sharing that 9%, that's the next holy grail for us to really figure out. Okay? Visual learning. There's a reason why Bing and Google and Baidu are doing so well. And particularly when you look at the consumption of video, it's because we like to learn visually. Stephen Weiss, who is one of the leaders for Bing, says that 65% of people are visual learners. So when you think about the way we create text in companies, what's what we do? We create text and we push it out. So we're not thinking through, like, how do our folks want to learn? And are we doing it in a way that's actually going to make the most difference?